Well, once again, happy Sabbath to everyone. Can you hear me, Elaine?
Yes, we can hear you good. Thanks.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So happy Sabbath to everyone. And I just want to thank everyone for this invite. Yes, I'm a bit nervous, but I'm sure everything will go well with the grace of God. I just want to give a little introduction of myself. I am Gail. At the moment, yes, I'm back in Portugal, but I've been all the time in Brazil, at the school in Brazil. My family and we were volunteers working there for the past couple of years. And now we're back in Portugal. I'm sure some of you know my daughter, Gabriela. She was the director at the school. So the time and period at the school in Brazil was an awesome time. So yes, this is just a little bit about me. So let's go into what I've brought to participate. My topic today that I'm going to speak on is how women's rights fared in the past year, and that it's all about survival. Is everybody still? Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So recently, we know it was for the World Women's International Day. And I received a few messages actually congratulating me for the day, and it actually got me thinking. It got me thinking, why are women and even men congratulating us? So what did I do? I decided to do this brief study. And I also think it's important to know that where we stand regarding this day and how the world views it, and the many other things that women encounter. So I'm not going to focus just on that particular day, but as I go along, you'll see I'm going to generally speak about women. Do our ideas align with this celebration, for instance, and do we agree with it? These are questions that we should actually ask ourselves daily in our lives, and not only on the 8th of March. So why is International Women's Day held on the 8th of March, for example? So we have a woman by the name of Clara Zetkins, whose original idea was for an international celebration was not tied to a particular day. And as I go along, we'll find out why was this reason. So the 8th of March, the date was chosen after Russian women demanded bread and peace during a wartime strike in 1917. So already there we see what was their demand at that time. And when we see that this demand is bread and peace, we look at the word celebration. So if I'm demanding, or if we're going to demand something like that, should I actually be celebrating? So as we continue, if I'm going too fast, or if anybody wants to participate, add in something, please do comment or unmute yourselves, and please do, let's interact, let's learn together. Okay, I think it will make it interesting, and it'll also take away my nerves as well. So the 8th of March date was, like I said, was chosen after Russia. So 4 days into the strike, the Tsar was forced to abdicate. And the provisional government granted women that time the right to vote. So we see as we go on and learning about this date and this time that according to the Julian calendar, which was then in use in Russia, the women's strike began on the 23rd of February. But we know in the Gregorian calendar used in much of the rest of the world that this date is on the 8th of March. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and I'm going to read an article that was in the Washington Post, and I found it very, very interesting. So I want to share parts of it with you all. And it actually starts by saying, the world celebrates this day saying, It is a global day of celebration, recognizing the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. So already there, we should stop and think, okay, light should be flashing. The world will celebrate this recognizing social, okay, we look into the lives of women, economic, cultural, political achievements of women. Then we think, okay, what achievements of women do we really have? And we all know that there's certain things that have come about, you know, with the past years that women can now do. And the world will think, wow, this is it, you know. Now the women got lots of rights, they've got many things out there. But as we go along, we will see where things are not really like that. So the day also serves as a call, as I continue reading, the day also serves as a call to action for accelerating gender parity and promoting gender equality. It has been observed since the early 1900s and is now recognized and celebrated worldwide. Does anybody want to add on to or contribute to something that I've just mentioned? Or can I just carry on from now, for now? Okay, I'll carry on. So initially, when we start reading this article, it points to something that seems positive for women, right? I would say that this day is actually being romanticized. What do you all think? Romanticized by the world to cover up for inequality. It's a fantasy based on ruling class, ego, and guilt. This is the way I see it. How would any one of you all that's participating at this moment, how would you all actually see this? I have somebody, Gabriella, you got your hand up?
So I just wanted to comment on something as you were speaking, because I was thinking a lot of us, of course, probably received messages on that day, looked into articles, looked up a little bit more maybe about the day and so on. But I was thinking that, of course, I don't know in what route you're going to take the study, but I was thinking, of course, the world makes such a big thing about it. And for thinking about it, maybe it's a good thing, just in the sense that we need to bring to vision again that there are still problems for women. So not only achievements. So my point is, the world brings it as, wow, we have this day, women have achieved so much. But I think that we can also look into the perspective of being more alert, in the sense that, yes, we have achievements, but they are not enough. We are not yet where we are supposed to be. So it's not that the state is bad, but I don't think the world really understands it, or they see it as we see it, which is, it's not enough yet for women, basically.
Okay, thank you, Gabriella. Anybody else have something to add on to that?
I was just going to say, Celine, just going to say, almost like a masking of everything. It's a celebration of what has been accomplished without looking at all the things that are being undone at the very same time that they're celebrating.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Elaine, to that. So if there's no one else, I'm going to continue. But like I said, if there's somebody who wants to chat, please just unmute and contribute. Let's do this together. So it's a fantasy, like I said, based on a ruling class, ego, and some form of guilt. So if we were not born into a patriarchal system, no one would be congratulating us. So if I wasn't actually born into the system, there was no need for anybody to congratulate me, all of us. We would have lived in a life of equality, first of all, that we actually deserve since we were created. Is that not right? No one would congratulate us for something that's actually entitled to us. So we don't need any form of congratulations because it should be entitled to us. It should be automatic. So we have learned that patriarchy is a fragile system based on negotiations, making deals, whose continuation we all actually, when we think of it, in some part in our lives, participate in. At some point in history, we either still participate or we have participated. And so these are things that I really think sometimes we need to sit back and really think about it, as we see, as we're heading towards the Sunday law. Do I still have some form of patriarchy within me? So remember that even those who said they don't want to participate in the system end up getting somehow bribed or pressurized into doing it. So I think that celebrating this day would be like, actually, let's see, falling into a trap or not understanding that our fight is actually not over. And so we should we actually celebrate this day? And if we say yes, how should we celebrate this day? And how should we actually remember this day? I would say not even celebrate, because that word celebration is another level, but how should we actually remember it? So the article continues by saying, and I also don't want to just speak and speak and speak, we would open up. So it says, yesterday, the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, urged faster action to achieve gender equality. Just listen to his words. He's asked for faster action to achieve gender equality amid what he described as a fierce backlash against women's rights. The UN Secretary, why would he say this if it's good to celebrate this day? Why would he say that we have to accelerate to get some women's rights? He continues by saying, billions of women and girls face marginalization, injustice, discrimination, while the persistent epidemic of violence against women disgraces humanity. And on what I've just said, he mentions the word epidemic. What do we understand as an epidemic? Would somebody like to answer that? What is an epidemic?
Gabrielle.
And affects everyone.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
It's global and it affects everyone.
Yes, exactly. Gabriella, you wanted to say something as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, it's basically like a rapid disease that affects the world, basically, in a short period of time.
Exactly. Thanks for all the comments. Yes, because an epidemic is a rapid spread of a disease within a short period of time. And yes, it's worldwide. But we know that inequality is more than a pandemic. It is an actual pandemic, which, like I've just said, it's spread worldwide. So instead of just an epidemic, we have this pandemic that is spread, right? And this is inequality. Gabrielle.
This just a point. I think that's interesting because once again, it's like Antonio Guterres, the secretary, he's making it like, okay, we need to let's take this day and urge in a certain way. But he puts the words even that he chooses for it. It's like he's saying it's an epidemic. Like, okay, he knows it's a disease that is spread, but there's bigger things than an epidemic. So I think the point that you bring by saying, look, it's actually, we should see it as a pandemic, see it as something bigger. It clearly shows to me, I think at least, that they don't make it such a big thing. It's like they point it out, but it's not yet a big thing for them because I think in the back of their minds, they still think that we have conquered a few things, and that's it. Now they have conquered things. There's nothing else to conquer. It's just that few women suffer here and there. I think that they pointed out, but they don't make such a big thing out of it.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear Gabriella clearly?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And if there's anything that is not making sense or not, with what we're speaking, please be free. Please be free to participate. And also, I just forgot to ask Elaine, could you please control the time for me as well? I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank
We usually go for quite a bit, so you're fine.
Okay, thank you. Because yeah.
Good morning.
Let's carry on in that.
Good
So
morning,
we
Gail.
have yes.
Yes, happy Sabbath, Gail, and welcome.
Happy Sabbath. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment. You've brought out so many wonderful points, especially the fact that this International Women's Day is a celebration, right? And you made me think, I hadn't thought about it in the context that you are bringing it about, that it is, like Elaine used the word masking, what's really going on. And especially in the light of the United Nations choosing Saudi Arabia, right, to chair women's status.
Yes.
And then I got to thinking about what Elder Parmenter in his recent studies, not last evening's study, but the ones before, when he was going into methodology and the 90% of the you need to read the words, and then the 10% is structured. But he got us to really examine liberal feminism, and I was so pleased with the clarity he brought out on that, because many of us have often focused. I always thought the term lipstick feminism was deceiving, because people right away just think makeup, or a woman just self-empowering herself by her appearance. And they're missing those other very crucial layers that he brought out with regards to it's all liberal feminism is who did all this work that brought about all these rights, right? But the fact of it is they're working within the scaffold structure of patriarchy. And so that is the key to me. And what you're saying shows that they want to assuage, A-S-A-U-G-E, women by letting them think they can rest upon their laurels with this International Women's Day. Oh, look what you've accomplished, right?
Yes.
And instead, it's hiding the true issue, the disease, the epidemic. I know patriarchy is not a disease, but it contributes to mental disease, physical, spiritual disease in people's minds.
Yes.
And it's a mind disease, a mindset. So I just want to thank you for bringing that all out so clearly.
Thank you. Is it Susan? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent. That's exactly where I'm actually going to, and I'm going to bring Iran up on this as well. So it's so awesome how we can connect, on the line, we can connect the understanding. So yes, that's exactly what it is. So we have key events that actually have affected women around the world in the past years, and it becomes more and more visible. So for instance, let us look at the impact that the war between Gaza, first of all, and Israel. I know many of us have read, but it's always nice to reinforce on the subject so we can see where we are going to and where we're heading. Because in 5 months since Israel and the Gaza war began, more than 30,800 people in the enclave have been killed, and over 72,298 injured. But look at the number, about 9,000 women were killed in between that time. And we know these numbers are actually rising on a daily basis. Israel's widespread bombing in this densely populated Gaza has left most of its population, we know, displaced. And it's actually sad, including 1 million women and girls. 1 million women and girls. Shocking. Including with this, you have thousands of pregnant women who face the prospect of giving birth in tents or in the street. And amid all this international warnings of famine, diseases, and the collapse of Gaza's health system, this is all taking place. The number of miscarriages and stillbirths has increased. This is according to the doctors and the aides and the aid groups. And it's actually sad. Why is this? First of all, they're against abortion. They're against birth control. They are controlled by a patriarchal system. So when you already see all these things taking place, when you have these control in a system which is patriarchal, there is no ending. And it's all about survival for women and girls. This is an example of women that cannot even think of celebrating. They cannot celebrate this day because they haven't achieved anything. So how can they even think of celebrations? They don't have any rights. Through this war, we can see how women are affected and lose their lives. So we go back to that thought of celebrating. Many women, many girls cannot even think of celebrating. Jamie McGoldrick, the UN humanitarian coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territories, said this, that displaced women in camps he had visited in southern Gaza reported sexual harassment and gender-based violence there. And we know since and before the Gaza war, this has always been and continuing. For these women in this patriarchal society, sexual harassment, violence, rape, gang rape, it's continual. So while the world is celebrating this day, Women's Day, millions of women face death, sexual harassment, violence, etc.
It's like an insult and a disgrace.
Exactly. It's an actual insult. And that's the way we should feel. We should feel whether we are women or men. We should see that as an actual disgrace and an insult. So while the world is celebrating this day, like I said, millions of women are suffering. This is just another day like any other where women continue to suffer in this world. But it should have been a day like any other where our voices should be louder, should be heard, and our rights entitled to us since we are born should be naturally given to us. That's what it should be about. We should have a society where we didn't even need to celebrate this day because it would probably mean that women would be at an equal position. And we've learned in this movement about equality. And when a society, like a patriarchal society, wants to rule and take control, we know the difficulty that we are going to encounter, that we daily encounter. So separately, the UN human rights experts voiced concern about reports. And why I brought the UN, we will, as I continue, we'll see why. They voiced a concern about reports of inhuman and degrading treatment of Palestinian women and girls detained by Israeli forces in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. This is what they say. So a team of the UN experts reported not so long ago that there are reasonable grounds to believe that some victims we know of the October 7th attack were sexually assaulted once again, including by rape and gang rape once again. It found clear and convincing information that there was sexual violence and torture against some of those taken hostage, and that the violence may be ongoing. And I just want to stop there for a second, where it says may be ongoing. We know it's not maybe, we know it's ongoing. And that's the shocking thing, that the UN, they say that it may be, but it's ongoing. So are we saying, congratulations, you are a woman. You earn 20% less than men. You are scared in the streets to be harassed. So let's celebrate. You suffer because of society. And like Susan said, beauty standards, etc. So the 8th of March should actually help us see even more the inequality we live in, and we actually should be sad and concerned about it. Does anybody want to contribute so far before I continue?
I have a comment.
Yes, and that is
My name is Francisco.
Francisco. Yes, Francisco.
It seems that March 8th has just become a distraction for the violence and the oppression that's going on. They're distracting you from the violence that's going on by saying this is a day of celebration for women throughout the world, when actually it's covering up the atrocities that are going on at present day and present time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
Kind of like
Yes, thank
just
you.
basically saying, be happy with what you have. And there's an
Yes.
awful lot of people out there that don't have.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly my point, and that's exactly why I brought that. So, you know, we have so many days out there. There's so many Mother's Day, Father's Day, and all these kind of days. And there's a point in time, especially us in this movement, this message that is so beautifully given to us. We need to always be alert. We need to be wise. We need to be, you know, always, like I said, alert, because our daily lives, we have families, friends, people around us, and we need to have answers in season and out of season. Gabriella.
I was just thinking, because you bring the UN, we know they have the Declaration of Human Rights,
Human rights.
but and now we read these articles where they express themselves, they speak about ongoing harassment, sexual harassment, all these things that women go through. But my question is, like, what do they actually do to help? You know, they bring out all these reports, you know, they were supposed to be there defending all the human rights. They should be like a helping hand, you know, for humans, and especially in this case, since they are reporting for women and girls. But what do they actually do? How do they actually contribute? You know, because I don't know, I just see like more and more they don't have control over things somehow.
Thank you to that. I don't know if somebody wants to answer, Gabriella.
Hi, Gabriella, and hi, Gail.
Yes, hello.
You and a really, really timely message. And I agree with what Gabriella just said, and that was in my thought, is that the UN is, you know, constantly stepping up and, you know, saying these things that sounds good, sounds like they're, you know, for equality, but they never really stand for anything or can really do anything. And, you know, again, that's because of the patriarchal society, that the system that, you know, and, you know, when I think back, this, you know, the book that Elder Parmenter had recommended just recently, called Our Bodies.
Yes.
Their, what was it? Our Bodies, their
Battlefield.
battlefield.
Our bodies, ourselves.
The
Yeah.
Battlefield.
Their battlefield by Chris.
Battlefield, yes.
Christina Lamb. I mean, and speaking of war and women in war, it is so clear that we have not progressed at all when it comes to women's rights as just human beings.
Yes.
Because it's just so brutal, and that's going on even today. And what has the United Nations done about it? I mean, you
Yes.
can talk a good talk, but we're beyond talking right now,
Yes.
So anyway, and by the way, this is Donna.
Donna, yes. Thank you, Donna, for that contribution. Exactly. And that's where I'm going to. What has the United Nations done about it?
May-
Why is there so much silence out there? Yes, somebody else wanted to comment?
Yes, it's a small point, but as you are all sharing in Gabriella's question and what Donna said, I immediately thought of an abusive relationship, because many times in an abusive relationship, the person will tell you wonderful, sweet things. I love you, da 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 da. But their actions do not show what their words
Yes.
are saying.
Yes.
And they want you to hear those words, and you sentimentally, it hits your emotions, those words, and your eyes deny what you're actually seeing. Those words seem to bypass your reasoning ability, because you romanticize what it is you really want it to be, even though it isn't that at all. And that's what I see the role that the UN is playing by voicing these wonderful, high sentimental ideals, but not living at all according to the words that they speak.
Thank you, Susan. That's exactly what's it all about. Gabriella.
I was exactly going to say the same thing as Susan, because this is it. They're romanticizing something that it isn't. And the worst is that they are the ones giving these reports. They are there, they are involved, they can see these things, and yet they don't stand up for these things. So if we don't have the ones that's supposed to be helping humanity actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, where do we stand?
Yes.
How's it going to be for us going forward? So I think more than ever, I think us ourselves, the movements in general, we have to somehow come out, be seen, do something. I don't know if in a small or big proportion. I have no idea how it is and how we can directly intervene in these things, but I think that somehow we have a role,
Yes.
so that the world, I don't know, can face all these things, and especially women that are suffering, the minorities that are suffering.
Minorities. Thank you for that. Just within our environment, we cannot hold back. Like I said in the beginning, we have families, we have friends. I think our message that we're learning, there's this question: why are we not going out to the Netherlands? Why are we not why are we not out there? I think in every little thing that we do, we think that it's not big, but it's the one or two, the three or four is, it's that spheres of influence that the one has that will take to the next one, and it will eventually, it gets there, somehow it gets there. We don't need to make a loud, big noise, because we see what the loud so-called noises are doing out there in the world with women today. And it's just not making sense. So how are we going to celebrate what we should not be going through? How can we celebrate? It should make us want to actually fight for our rights that are actually entitled to us. I'm emphasizing that again. We should fight for the millions of women that are suffering around the world at the moment and have suffered since the world exists. What rights do you think we should be fighting for, and how do we fight for it? And we just had this conversation now, how we could contribute. We cannot be silenced. It is not the time to be silenced. Gabriella.
With your question, I was thinking that one of the ways, because that was what I had questioned, maybe one of the ways of being more voiced, being heard in a certain way, would be for instance, not letting our democracy die out. I think that's where we should have, be more active and more participants in, maybe it's not entirely up to us, but when the things that we are supposed to be doing, like voting correctly, being on the right side of the information stream and so on, maybe that's also one of the ways that we could contribute.
Okay, anybody else? What
Hi.
rights? Yes,
This is Donna again.
Donna, yes.
So yes, I agree with what Gabriela was saying. Also too, when you're in a court of law and you're defending something or a topic or whatever, oftentimes they go back to a previous case, and that's how they defend. So in order to truly, really defend equality in whatever fashion, you have to have laws. You have to enact laws so that when you go into a legal, courtroom, you can defend it because you have a law. If you don't have a law ratifying like the Equal Rights Amendment for women, to have women to legally be on the books, to have equal rights, it's going to be a very hard road for women, because there's nothing really solid to stand on, because women have never really had that. There was a time, with the Civil Rights Act in 1965 that was actually put on the books. There were a lot of great things that happened then, but the one thing that didn't happen was the Equal Rights Amendment was never passed. And it was almost given up. It was like given up at the end of Miss Schlafly, what was her name? Phyllis Schlafly and her movement, and it was very successful to bring down the ERA. Radical feminists never picked up that baton and continued with it. And so today, I believe one of the main reasons why we have a difficulty in women's rights is because we have nothing on the books, nothing legal that binds us. And then we went to a court of law because there is no legal rights for women rights. There's you almost like you have nothing. If you're a lawyer, what do you have to defend?
Yes.
So that's just my thing.
Excellent. Thank you very much on that, Gabriela.
Sorry.
Donna.
Like I was listening to Donna, and I'm thinking that's exactly it. And imagine when you have laws into place and these laws are not even being abided by. It's like we have this Declaration of Human Rights from the UN, but not even with that, they are able to stop the war. Even with that, they are not able to stop all these things that women go through in the world. So where do we stand? What does the future look?
What does the
for
future
us,
look like? Exactly. Thank you. So another example, let me just go on. Another example, another article where it spoke about the reproductive rights remain in a polarizing voters issue in a presidential election year. So nearly 2 years after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, eliminating a constitutional right to abortion that had stood for 50 years, President Biden is trying to mobilize a Democratic base on preserving abortion access. That's so far we know. While his Republican opponent, former President Donald Trump, has said he is proud to have contributed to the overturning of Roe by cementing a conservative majority on the Supreme Court. So if we already we know the picture of that supreme majority in the Supreme Court, the male majority of conservatives, of course he would be proud that he did that. And of course it will be a continuous battle for women to actually try and infiltrate through that system. So this impact of the Supreme Courts, for example, the 2022 abortion ruling is still being felt around the world. It's still being felt. On Women's International Day, going back, the world says they are celebrating culture as an achievement by women. But we know that power is held by men through these cultural norms and customs that actually favor men and withhold the opportunity from women. We know that. For example, Afghanistan. If you are a girl in Afghanistan, the Taliban has decided your future for you. You cannot attend secondary school or university. We know that. You cannot find a library where you can read. You can see your mothers confined, unable to work. Go to a park, a simple thing as a park, or go get a haircut, or even see a doctor. All these things are happening. And we have the so-called United Nations that's supposed to be helping humanity. All these forms of discrimination and persecution are institutionalized as they stem from policies, practices, put in places by these authorities. Where do we go to from here? There has been calling for the recognition of this treatment of women in these countries as gender apartheid. Gender apartheid. Those most affected by the hunger crisis at the moment in Afghanistan are women and girls. So the UN figures paint a grim picture for women and girls, with an estimated of 1 million malnourished, pregnant, and breastfeeding women in Afghanistan. Imagine being pregnant, breastfeeding, and you're malnourished. I mean, it's actually shocking. And what are people doing? And these challenges were where food is available. The problem is that in most cases, women and girls cannot access it because they do not have the money to buy for it. Of course, they would not have money because they cannot find work. They cannot access the food that is on the marketplaces. And these curbs that are imposed on women's employments have actually seriously impacted households where women are the main providers. Even the widows suffer with these curbs just for being a woman. They are not salarized anymore. So how are you going to get to these necessities? They cannot find work outside of their homes. So it becomes increasingly difficult for them to buy food. And this is just the basic needs, just the basic needs we're talking about here. These women cannot buy or sell. And when I put those words out there, I thought of Revelation, I thought of the Bible, you know, you can't buy or sell. We women have got into such a spot where you cannot even buy or sell. They borrow food from shopkeepers and their relatives. They are actually at the brink, unable to look after themselves or their children. So we can see where we are. It's actually really shocking, where we need to speak out, we need to be loud, and we need to cry out. And we need to know and see that we are heading directly to the Sunday law, just seeing these things. The world knows what happened after the Taliban in 2021 returned to their powers. You'll all know, we know, but we're going to emphasize it more. Pregnant women do not have adequate access to proper nutrition, both before, like I said, and after birth. And this affects the infants. Women beg in front of bakeries. Imagine, they're begging their neighbors' houses just to eat once a day, just once a day. And it's always the women that want to try and provide. Why is there no one holding the Taliban accountable? This is my question. Why is there nobody holding the Taliban accountable for these abuses? Why is there such silence out there? These questions are being asked, right, like I'm asking now. Activists ask these questions as well. Why is there such silence going on? The recent edict to resume, we saw recently the stoning of women to death. For me, that was absolutely shocking, and I'm sure for you all as well. Stoning women to death should be shocking to these governing parties. It should be. If the UN is about humanity and peace. Where are they? The announcements by the supreme leader of the Taliban that the group would begin enforcing its interpretation of the Sharia law, which includes reintroducing, and I stop by that word, reintroducing. It's not like it was something new. They're reintroducing the public flogging and stoning of women for adultery. So it's something that was done in the past and they're just bringing it back again. It is easy for them to do this because there is a sense of silence. There we go again, silence from those who are to take care of human rights. And that is shocking. Anybody would like to contribute?
Yeah, that is shocking. And, you know, I remember back in the day, I think it was in the 80s, there was a movie that came out and it was called The Stoning. I think it was 2008. It was called The Stoning of Soraya. And I had watched that movie and I was so appalled. And what that movie was based on a true story. And what it was basically saying, in this little place in Iran, there's all these little towns and things, that these things were happening in the 80s. Nothing has ever stopped. I do believe that stoning is still happens in areas, in little regions and little towns. And, you know, that don't hit the news and don't get
Yes.
onto the news. And it is truly, truly, I mean, it's horrific. And I remember even reading, there's a little book that you can even read, that it's just the way everything in that little town, there was everything that we have today in our society. There was conspiracy theories, there were lies, there were all these different things happened. It just, even though it was in this small little town and little village in Iran, the same things are happening even in the large cities and things on a smaller scale. But this is what happened, and it was just horrific. Nobody believed her, even though there was no evidence. There was lies accusing her because her husband really wanted to be with another woman. He didn't want to divorce her because it would have cost him too much. I mean, it was just horrendous. So yes, the stoning is, you know, I don't believe it ever really truly gone away. I believe
Yes.
today in little areas, there still is, it's happening today.
Afghanistan.
Yeah, in Afghanistan.
There was a article that I read in the last week or so.
Thank you, Donna.
It was a, this is Elaine. It was a, basically an interview that was put in as an article. And the journalist was one that had been in Afghanistan for many years through 2001 and all the way up. And in the interview, he was talking about, and these are things that I think that I know I never understood long, you know, I never paid attention to before where we're at today. But a lot of people don't understand. In the interview, he talks about the condition of women prior to 2001, prior to, well, when the Taliban took over and what it was like. And then when the US went in, and those 20 years of all the progress that was made. I don't think I really connected all of that as much as when I read that article, that the progress that they made, because girls and women were now getting educated, were now having careers, and they saw what I don't think a lot of the world saw, is what was going to be the outcome when the US pulled out. And that's what that interview was basically going through, those 20 years of progress, and even saying that a lot of the Taliban, they were at Guantanamo Bay and such. They were not in Afghanistan for those 20 years or a good part of their time. So they did not even know what it was like. And they had to actually face a woman leader when the Afghan government and the Taliban got together to try to come to some sort of arrangement. This was before the US pulled out, but right at that time. And they had, the Taliban leaders there had to face women in making these decisions together, and how disgusted they were to be working with women. So I don't think the world really recognizes, you know, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yes.
So we can easily just celebrate International Women's Day and think, oh, everything's just great, and not realize what other people suffered. So women, more than anybody else in Afghanistan, they knew they had that. It's like a trigger. you know, we learn about different triggers, but it was like, it had to be like a trigger.
Oh,
They knew what
yes.
life was like 20 years before, and they know going back to that, what it's going to be like, and they feared it.
Yes, thank you, Elaine. That is so true. They feared it then and they fear it now. And the silence, I can imagine how they feel. There's so much silence. I can imagine how they feel that when the US pulled out and knowing that will there be help, and their daily lives thinking that we don't see an end to this. We see on every front of a war, women are involved. But how are they involved? They're being attacked, gang raped. We have the new weapons of war today. And what are these new weapons of, shockingly, what are these new weapons of war? Is rape. And that is actually so shocking. It's shocking to be a woman in this world today. And this is where we're heading to, Gabriella.
I was reading the comment here from Troy, I think. He was saying that he's reading the book that's Elder Paminda recommended. And I remember that on the Bible study, and I think it was Penny, I'm not quite sure, had put as well a YouTube video of that same book.
Penny.
I don't know if we're talking about the same book. But I remember starting to listen to that YouTube video, and the author was saying that the lady was saying that she had interviewed a couple of women and so on, and they actually say to her, okay, why should I tell you my story? What are you going to do with all this information? And that got her thinking as well, okay, I have all this information, I write about all these things, and now what do I do with all this? Because, and I think this is the despairing woman as well. I'm going to tell you my story, I'm going to tell you my problems. No one is going to believe, no one's going to listen to it. There's books out there, there are reports out there, the world is seeing and listening about this, but no one is doing nothing for me. So imagine now how these women feel by, how are they going to even celebrate this Women's Day?
Yes.
It's just impossible. You know, it's like, doesn't the world see, don't other women see, don't people see that we're going through this suffering, and you still want to celebrate this day? I mean, it's insane.
Yes, thank you to that. It's like, people are gone into such a taboo, like a picture of romanticizing, things to try and shut down or not see the reality of suffering in this world. And we can't do that. We can't do that, because as long as we've got the breath of life within us, we really need to see that the patriarchal system is really not helping, in any form. It's just not helping out. And this is the root of the problem. And what are we going to do about the roots of the problem? We can go back to the 1500s, like for example, 1565, where you had the Mosaic law. Remembering the stoning of Mary Magdalene, at least in the Christian history. So history doesn't repeat, but it's just a forever attack that's going on women. Their wording was so cruel. We will flog the women, they say. We will stone them to death in public. I mean, we're talking about recently. We will stone them in public for adultery. To be talking 6,000 years on, we still see such evil. They compare representing Allah by doing these things, and the women for them are representing Satan. So that is why they need to flog her. And I mean, that is so absolutely scary. Christ's words for the scribes and the Pharisees at that time. And he said, the one who is without sin is the one who should cast the first stone at her. The accusers and the congregants depart, realizing not one of them is without sin. Not even Christ condemned Mary. But today, 6,000 years and on, we're having this repeating thing that is taking place. And where are we going to get the help from? Because we're on earth. Christ is not physically here. We can say that I do not, you do not do that. The news was met by horror, but By no surprise, by the Afghan women's rights group, 14 million women and girls now living just to survive, while the Taliban continue to demand and command moral and societal orders. Shockingly, just recent news that Saudi Arabia, earlier on was mentioned, Saudi Arabia is to head the Women's Rights Commission. And I'm sure you all heard about that. When I read that, and I thought Saudi Arabia is to head the Women's Rights Commission, chosen by who? Chosen by the UN. They promote so-called gender equality. When they continue jailing women's rights activists, Saudi Arabia, pushing for family values, patriarchal system, which many of other countries are also implementing as well. So we have copycats all the time. But what are these family values backed on? We know it's a patriarchal society, which needs to be we need to bring it down, deconstruct it. Male guardianship. Just the thought of bringing your own unborn female child into the world already starts from birth. Many women's worst fears. And I may sound at this moment with this lesson, I hope it's not bringing like, oh, everything is so dull and it's, this is the fact of the matter, we cannot romanticize things anymore. If we say we are we close to the Sunday law, where we can see the second coming of Christ is at the door, we need to see the things as reality. This is the fact of the matter. Many may say that, oh, no, you women are exaggerating. Oh, no, things are good. We know that is not true. What happens when laws or bills against women and girls are daily being strengthened to punish those who are against these bills? What happens, Gabriella?
I didn't directly want to answer that question, but I lifted my hand because we were talking about buying and selling earlier on. And I think, I don't know, this was a curiosity that I had for a long time, by reading Ellen White. What is it? Why is it that we cannot buy and sell? But I think how I can perceive it a little bit now with this message is basically a way of punishing people who are against these laws, who are against these bills. It's nothing like, oh, you are Adventist, you keep the Sabbath, and because you keep the Sabbath, you cannot go to the shop and you cannot buy or sell. I now see it more in the sense of, like you were saying, that they will punish people, and especially those that are fighting for rights and minorities and so on, because you are against all these bills.
Yes. And thank you for that. That's what I thought about. Okay, buy and sell. We always thought, okay, buy and sell, the mark of the beast and thing. And then I stopped and I thought, buy and sell. Of course, these laws and these things that have been put into place. And we see with the gender equality that we're learning now, it's about women. You cannot buy or sell. You're going to be shut into this place. It's like you're going to lose your rights. Your rights are taken away from you. What do you all think about that? Anybody would like to also add on to that? If not, I'll carry on. So let's just quickly.
I think Jackie wanted to say something.
Jackie, yes. Sorry, I can't see the chat.
Gail, I'm so happy to know you and hear you. And you're just hitting everything in my heart right now. There's been so many good comments made as well. And happy Sabbath to you.
Happy Sabbath.
You know what I'll say in very short terms here. I think our own personal experience and what we have gone through in our lives dictates how we feel about women and how they've been treated, how they are being treated. But in the United States, I was thinking about this as you were talking, there's so much hypocrisy, especially in politics. And saying that you're doing something, especially for women, but yet not doing it at all. And just in short, when I hear how we need to speak up if we don't speak up individually, because individuals make up the group, make up the people that are crying out. And if we just look at these things and say, oh, it's so sad, it's so horrible, it's so awful, we have to look at our own lives and feel how we would like it if we were suffering that greatly as those people are in Gaza, in Ukraine. Same thing, the
Yes.
women have been raped by Russians, in war. And this is happening all over the world, in Islam especially too, with their radical beliefs with women that are suffering. So I see that we can't turn our faces away from this. And as
Oh,
God is working in and through us, especially with the messages that I know that we've heard just recently, Christ in you, the hope of glory. That means that we stand up like Christ stood up. He saw these issues. And if we turn a blind eye to this, when we know what's happening, maybe we haven't suffered like they have as greatly, but we have to have it in our heart to speak up and say those things that need to be said against the patriarchal system. And we're going to suffer from doing
Yes.
that. We know that we will.
yes.
This is because we're a minority against the cultural, against the patriarchal system, Satan's system.
Mhm.
And Satan is in control of the world and all of these issues that are happening with women and gender is just horrendous. But we as God's people and others that will join us, or we join them, we will speak with one voice, even if our suffering hasn't been as great, but that doesn't matter. It's the suffering itself that God sees.
Yes.
So I'm very passionate about this and hearing what you have shared, and Gabriella too, and others. And
Thank
that's
you,
where my
Jackie.
thoughts are right now. So
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for that. Gabriella, you wanted to say something?
Just a quick comment, I was thinking that because sometimes we say we are so much in our comfort zones that we don't realize or we don't feel so much as other women feel. Of course, we all suffer and we go through things in different proportions, I think. And I was just thinking that recently, for instance, I have gone through I have been going to a couple of work interviews. And recently I went to one, and the CEO of the company had said to me, so what are the things you like to do, and so on. And one of the things I mentioned to him was that I like reading. So he says to me, okay, what was the last book that you read? And I said to him, already I was a little bit skeptical by saying it. And I said to him, well, Feminism is for Everyone by Bell Hooks. And then already we started this huge discussion there. And it's at the end of the day, a few weeks later, of course, I got declined for that job. So I think it doesn't matter how much you are qualified or not, as long as you speak up and you give your beliefs or whatever it is, this will always place you in a difficult position within society,
Yes.
So just adding on to what Jackie was saying, I remembered about that situation.
Thanks for that testimony. And it's reminded me, like when Gabriella did tell me about that. And the one part where she said, he asked her a question that if you're in a boardroom, and in our case, in this company, he says, the majority of us are men. And you're going to be the engineers, it's only us, and you're going to be the only female that's in there. And we are speaking, and you want to voice yourself. What are you going to do about it? And so she, as a radical feminist, says, well, I'm going to voice myself. I would like to have my say. So I think all of this, what she was speaking about, so sadly, did not allow her to enter in the company. And this is so recent. I mean, she got an answer after 3 weeks, was just only yesterday we're talking about. where they replied and said, sorry, your interview was really good, they say, but we will not accept it. So you see how we do suffer in some form as a woman and as radical feminists. You just mention the word feminist and that's it. It's a taboo, you know, but we are all men. We are the ones that's supposed to have the say. And if you're going to say it, well, that's it. So let me continue. We're going to now go and look.
May I just, I'm sorry, I just want to
No,
make
go
one
ahead.
point on that.
Yes.
And that is, I think, why liberal feminism caved, because they knew that they had to play within that system in order to get jobs, right?
Yes.
In order to, so they've caved to it. Whereas we're at the time in history where we can't, and we must speak the radical truth, right?
Yes.
Right. They hate anything feminist, and they only want women who are going to police other women, because you know, if
Yes.
there's women that believe the way they do, that go along with patriarchy, then it eases the job for the other men, because the women will police the women. So yeah,
That is excellently placed. That is so true. That is so true. They do not want women policing them for Garrett's. Yes, somebody else would like to comment?
Yeah, this is Donna. Susan, I totally agree.
Donna.
As a matter of fact, I think it was just the other day. Don't quote me on this, but it was I was watching a program, a news thing, and there was a woman that tried out for a job, and she was fully qualified, but she didn't get the job, and the reason was because she didn't wear makeup.
Wow.
And there was a critic or someone that was, you know,
Yes.
talking and said, well, maybe she should have just put a little bit of makeup on and then she would have gotten a job. But then other people were talking and saying, well, why should she? She was fully qualified. And she didn't need to put on makeup just to get the job, you know? And it wasn't a job that, you know, she was, you know, it was like she wasn't going to be a flight attendant or anything where you have to put on makeup.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
it was a job where she was going to be in an office, you know, a supervisory position, which would have it was not necessary. So anyway, these things happen, I mean, every day, even today.
Yes, that's it. And I mean, you're putting on the makeup for who at the end of the day? For them.
Right.
For those male figures.
Right.
To excite them that, oh, well, this is what I like. At the end of the day, it's never about you. It's to satisfy them, you know? So we always lose out.
I remember one time, I think it was Gloria Steinem, she was talking about what the sexual revolution did for women.
Yes, it was Gloria. She speaks so much, speaks about it, yes.
In the 60s and the 70s, women had this sexual revolution and they were free, you know, they had freedom, you know, in relationships. And she said that that actually was not freedom for women. It more benefited men than it ever did women.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about. So now who are these forces? Now as we come to closure towards our, you know, we're ending, I want to see who are these forces. Elder Parminder gave us, I think it was 2 weeks back, a lesson on the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. So I don't know if you can see my board. I tried to put a board up here. I don't think you can see it. Does it there? So I tried to put a board up here where I've got the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. So under the dragon, he had put paganism, spiritualism, and atheism. And under the dragon, you have the UN, which is Human Rights Declaration, right? There you are, if you can see there. We are not going to focus on the beast or the false prophet, but I want to focus on the dragon. Just by that name, dragon alone, and seeing that who is in comparison, the Human Rights Declaration that speaks like a dragon and has all these bulls and rules and says it's for peace, it's for humanity, doesn't it make some sense in prophecy when we look at it that not much would actually be done truly for humanity, and in this case, women? Because when we see the USA and the UN, once upon a time, that were not being able to get on with each other, but now, I don't know if I can see that. Yes, when you see the US and the UN, they never used to get on with each other, but now this threefold are in consolidating processes that have come together, where you see the US, which acts as a lamb beast. But what does it actually do when it speaks? How does it speak? It speaks like a dragon. So they have to stay together because they both speak like a dragon. The threefold union. So what I want to bring in human rights, these three entities are being used to bring together to the great test, which is the last crisis. We need to keep our glasses on and fix on these three entities. So it's not so, oh, wow, the human, the UN, the human rights. We need to put our glasses on and keep focused and see how they're together. They're working together. They're consolidating together. In this study, we already see how the UN, who is supposed to take care of human rights, is failing. Being a dragon that acts like a lamb-like beast, they consolidate for the Sunday law. All the fraud and corruption. United Nations is supposed to be the peace, the dignity, equality, but they say, peace, peace, but there is no peace. It is supposed to be a guiding light, torch bearers of change. Where is the change? The question is, where is the change? When they are compelled to promote a friendly relationship between nations, even if it means compromising laws and bills to keep the so-called peace. The USA continues influencing the UN. There will be no rapid changes in the way equality for women should be handled. The dragon power will be part of those who will bring forth the great last crisis. The UN is a dragon that pretends to be like a lamb-like beast. And remember that Ellen White tells us that there is a striking contradiction between the profession and the practices of such a nation. The last crisis. We are living in the time of the end. The last crisis in chapter 1, where it says, we are living in the time of the end. And this we will find in NT 11.1. We are living, sorry, I just want to try and get the test right, but this is what she says in the last crisis. We are living in the time of the end. The fast fulfilling signs of the times declare that the coming of Christ is near at hand. The days in which we live are solemn and important. The Spirit of God is gradually but surely being withdrawn from the earth. Plagues and judges are already falling upon the despisers of the grace of God. The calamities by land and sea, the unsettled state of society, the alarms of war are portentous. They forecast approaching events of the great multitude. And then she carries on saying, the agencies of evil are combining their forces and consolidating. Like we said, they're consolidating. They are strengthening for the last great crisis. Great changes are soon to take place in our world, and the final movements will be rapid ones. In closing, remembering the start of the subject, 8th of March, Women's Day, and I mentioned Clara Zetkin. Clara Zetkin was the founder of International Women's Day. She was a German lady who actually fled to Russia during the time of war. And she said, a vision for a post-patriarchal future was never about women having the same as men, was never about women having the same as men, and everything else staying the same. But it was actually about resetting society, inventing one without need, in which nobody suffered unnecessarily. Can we see the importance? The founder of that day said it was never about men. It was about everybody having the same rights in society and nobody suffering unnecessarily. And we see the suffering of women and girls unnecessarily because of the silence that has been taken place. She stood up to the Nazis in the defense of that hope. I hope that with this study, we can see that this day that's being celebrated is not the reality for women, and that women continue to suffer. It's used to disguise what the reality is really like. So I end with these words. We have nothing to fear for the future, except as we shall forget the way the Lord has led us. And the Lord's teaching in our past history. We are now a strong movement. If we will put our trust in the Lord, for we are handling the mighty truths of the Word of God, we shall have large responsibilities corresponding to the light given us by God. We have many duties to perform because we have been made the depositories of sacred truth to be given to the world in all its beauty and glory. We are debtors to God to use every advantage the Lord has entrusted to us to beautify the truth by holiness of character, equality, and to send the messages of warning and of comfort, hope, love to those who are in the darkness of error and sin. And that message is equality. So as I have completed that, any comments?
Amen. That was
Any
such,
comments or any questions?
amen. That was such a very well thought out study.
Amen. I'm humbled.
Thank you so much.
It was excellent, Gail. I wanted to break out in an applause, but I don't know if that was appropriate. But, you know, in my heart, it was, you just hit so many chords of truth and you put it together so excellently. And I just had jotted a couple comments that when you were bringing out the UN and at the bottom, the Declaration on your board of Human Rights. And I was thinking about the Constitution and what Ellen White wrote about that and how, you know, it's there, it's in place. It's not like they've done away with the Constitution, but they've done away with all the meaning and purpose of the Constitution.
Yes.
And the same with those rights. They're there, they're beautiful words, but it's not being lived out and practiced. And it's through the policies that this patriarchal system, right, through the policies that are being enacted and the precedents that have been overturned, you know, on the Supreme Courts, they claimed, many of those justices, when they were interviewed, claimed to believe in stare decisis, right, that they wouldn't overturn precedent, but that was not true. And so we have not a leg to stand on, as was brought out, you know, by law. And it brought me to Daniel 8:25. And I know that that was actually used for the papacy, but we can see that what is going on is the work of the apostate Protestantism, right? That's doing the work of the papacy. And Daniel 8:25 says, and through his policy, also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. So this craft that they're doing, this patriarchal policy they're enacting, and they're going to magnify, he shall magnify himself, right? And his heart, patriarchy is magnifying, men are magnifying themselves above women and making women and gender submissive and whitewashing the truth. And I use whitewashing as a double meaning because I think of the white European male dominant group that wants to whitewash out the Reconstruction, all that was going on for slavery, right? And erase all the history on that.
History, yes.
Yes, and so, and by peace shall destroy many. And just like you were saying, right? They want us to think everything is hunky-dory. And by celebrating and resting on laurels, we're missing the point, as you so eloquently brought out. But we know that this power will be broken.
It will
So
be broken.
yes, but
Will be
thank you.
broken.
Amen to your study.
Thank you. I thank each and every one of you all. I'm humble, really humble, just like you all. I'm also just learning as well. And, you know, everything that we all bring towards each other, contributing to each other, I think it strengthens us. It really strengthens us. And in this case, whether it's women or men, in this movement, we need to stand up together because together we can move forward. That's why we are a movement, so we can move forward. So I really want to thank each and every one. I want to thank Elaine as well, you know, for inviting me for the study. And I hope I've done justice. And it's so awesome to see all of you all on camera as well. So I want to thank you all for your contribution as well. It was it was really excellent. It was an excellent contribution. Thank you all.
Thank you, Gail.
Gail.
So good to meet you.
Very nice.
Thank you all. It's good to meet each and every one as well. God bless each and every one. And let's stand together and strengthen each other. That's very important. Stay
Amen.
together.
Yes,
Hold
great.
to the-
Amen. Thank you, Gail.
Can we have somebody close in prayer? And I thought I took her off spotlight so that anybody that wants to put their cameras on so we can all kind of meet in person. But would somebody like Donna, would you like to close us in prayer?
Sure. Dear Lord, we just give you all the glory this wonderful Sabbath morning, and such a blessing to have Gail with us and Gabriella. Just a timely message, something that has never really left our hearts, and it's becoming more profound. All over the world, we're seeing all the little people are noticing, and I just hope, Lord, that we would all have a right mind, and we would be able to, in our own way, even in our individual lives, amongst our friends, family members, to stand up to truth, to have the courage and conviction in our hearts, no matter the cost, Lord. Let us not be silent. Let us not say nothing like the participants in the UN when Saudi Arabia nominated themselves to be the advocates for the next 2 years in women's rights, and how no one said anything. Let us not be those people, Lord. No matter the cost amongst our family members and our friends and in our sphere of influence, let us have the courage to stand up to what's right. Thank you so much, Lord, for all that you do for us, for all our elders, the messages that are coming to us. Help us to stand strong for the coming Sunday law. And bless everyone in this movement. Give a special blessing to everybody. And we pray that you would draw us closer to one another, even those from far places. And we pray that we would just have a wonderful time just getting to know each other and finally being able to talk with each other, even if it's online. We are so grateful, Lord, for all the blessings that you give us for this internet and Zoom and all these things. We just give you all the glory and praise in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Gail. We really appreciate you coming here.